Passion Harvest. Hello, passionate listeners. Welcome to Passion Harvest. Thank you for making me a part of whatever you're doing right now. I am Louisa, your host, International Passion Ambassador. Welcome to the show. And if you like this episode, please do subscribe. I can't wait to dive right in. I have a very exciting guest today, Dr. Elisa Medhus. After the death of her 20-year-old son, Erick, Dr. Medhus began journaling her grief. Once Erick began to communicate with family, friends, and blog members, her entire paradigm shifted. Elisa Medhus is a physician and mother of 5 who practiced internal medicine for over 30 years, a strong believer in science. She formerly viewed spiritual matters with skepticism. And I just wanted to read this, what Elisa wrote. After my son Erick took his life, the pain was unbearable. But that pain was compounded by the fact that I was raised by 2 atheists. I didn't really have a belief system about life after death. Plus, as a physician, my educational background is heavily steeped in science. So for something to be real, I had to perceive it with my 5 senses, or so I thought. What I've discovered during my journey is that people yearn for answers. Many people have lost loved ones and pray that they are safe and happy and that their relationship with them has not ended. I've also found that many people suffer from severe death anxiety. They're so paralyzed with fear over the prospects of their own death that they can barely live their lives. Lastly, many people are just curious. They want to know the answers to the bigger questions because of that universal need. I decided to collect the material from Erick's answers to those many pressing questions and create a compendium of knowledge about death, the afterlife, the unearthed spirit, and much more. And so the book was born, Channeling Erick. Dr. Medhus is the author of 3 award-winning parenting books and has lectured on parenting for schools, parent groups, and corporations. This is her story and this is her passion. Dr. Elisa Medhus, welcome to Passion Harvest.
Well, thank you. And oh my goodness, you have such a beautiful voice, just meant for podcast and radio. It's so eloquent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve, and I will bear all. Sometimes TMI, and my husband says, "Why don't you give them your social security number while you're at it?" So
I love that. I had to think for a moment. TMI is too much information, right?
Yeah, I will have no problem being vulnerable and open as long as it helps others. So,
and I'm learning that myself. So, I'd really like to ask, and I actually have been getting a lot of questions about this recently, people who have loved ones passed, and I've had a lot of interviews with near-death experiences, but I think grief is such a fundamental part when we lose a loved one. How do you cope with grief? Or you don't have a choice, but how did you cope with the grief of your son?
Well, I didn't do all that well at first. I mean, grief is the price you pay for love, and I love my son. Of course, I still do. I love all my children so much. And we had this special connection. I found out we were twin flames. I did not know that. So that's why, for some reason, I just went really deep in my grief. And, I was like paralyzed. Like this little woman inside, broken little woman was screaming and and every time the clock went to that point where he pulled the trigger, I just had to go in the car and sit in the parking lot, turn the radio on, real blasting, and it was horrible. But I think the thing that helped me the most, and by the way, I was never an atheist, okay? Mm-hmm. It really started, this whole thing started with a phone call from my father 3 days after Erick's death. Now, my father was not a very good man. He was a sociopath, narcissistic, borderline personality, very mean guy. It was so mean that he beat us little kids so that we had to go homeless to escape it. So he was awful. And I'm giving you a backstory so you'll understand what happened to him. And, his first words when I was crying, telling him Erick died, he said, "Sorry, Lisa, but Erick's going to turn to dust." So he was just not good. Anyway, thank God he's gone. I know. You should it's sad to hear people that I'm so sad my dad's gone, but he just left this world in much worse shape than when he came here. But it's a good thing because it made this whole thing real to me, because 3 days after Eric's death, he calls me in an absolute panic, saying that he was sitting in his chair reading the Wall Street Journal when, he put his journal down, and there was Eric standing seemingly in the flesh right in front of him. And then Eric approached him, and he was gobsmacked, I can only imagine, because he was a militant atheist. And he morphed into his little boy self and crawled up into my father's lap. And he whispered in my father's ear in Spanish, because my father's from Spain, things come in threes. So I don't know really what that meant exactly. But, and so he said, I'm so startled, I don't know what to believe. He's freaked out. Now I know, because because of his backstory, that he would never say that to me to make me feel better, to give me hope. So then I thought, maybe there is, life after death. I got to find my boy. And so I started reading just everything, all sorts of books on quantum physics, parallel universes, near-death experiences, controlled studies, with mediums, just, everything I could, the conscious survival studies. And then I read out of books to read, or at least books I could understand. Okay. And so at the same time, my eldest daughter, who was a second-year medical student at the time, decided to create 2 blogs, one for her, because she needed some light and beauty in her life, and she's a beauty fashion expert. So she started her blog, Pretty Shiny Sparkly, which is now Christina Brawley, BRALY.com. You got to look at it, and definitely look at does my makeup, because it's hilarious. But she also made a blog for me and called it Channeling Eric. And there's a reason she called it Channeling Eric. But anyway, so I started to, I just wanted a place where other people who grieve could also just feel like they were in a safe, loving place where they could just share their feelings. But also, I wanted to share my experiences with Eric. Now, when I did the reading about the controlled studies of mediums, I decided to go ahead and connect with a medium. And I'm telling you, and I'm embarrassed to say this, okay? If you had told me the word medium, it would have conjured up the image of a gypsy hunched over a crystal ball. And it's laughable now because I know there's so much science behind mediumship, etc. So I did connect with a medium, and I know that that's an act of desperation for a lot of parents or anybody who's lost someone. And I didn't give her any information except for my credit card number and my name for that. And her name is Jamie Butler. And she said, there's somebody here. She didn't know I lost anybody. He says, it's your son. He said he took his life. He said he shot himself with a gun. This is the kind of gun he used. This is the exact description of the shirt he was wearing. He was sitting at his desk at the time, and on and on and on. And she even, told me about how his F-bombs and his sailor tongue, which, she had a hard time channeling. And so I knew that she was connecting to my son. And so we had,
because it was so specific. It's just impossible that she would have known those details.
Yes. And so we had several sessions, and at first, they were personal, like why and what could we have done that would have been different, etc. But then eventually, I started asking questions about death. What's it like? What's crossing over like? What's the afterlife like? What is it like to be a spirit? How does your body change? And how do your emotions, your senses, everything? What do you do all day? Do you sit on a cloud and play the harp? No, they don't.
There's the scientist in you wanting to know all those questions. But when you were asking those questions, were you asking Eric or were you asking Jamie?
Oh, no, I was asking Eric through Jamie.
Yes, okay.
Because, I wanted his perspective. I also wanted to know why he had to die. And, I found out that it was his spiritual contract, that he was supposed to incarnate and suffer a lot in this life. And he did. Oh God. And I think that's the thing that I grieve over most is his life here on earth. And he was supposed to do that so he could develop the listening skills, the compassion, etc., that he needed to become a really good spirit guide. And that's what he is now. And he says the spirit guides are super common over there, like taxi cabs in New York. But it's just that, and anybody who's lost somebody who is now a spirit guide or whatever can do what I'm doing. It's just the trifecta of the internet, my willingness to create a platform, and Erik, well, I guess is 4, and a medium. So, at the same time that I was asking these questions, even about God, about time, etc., Erik started making himself known in our house in just incredible ways. Like he would manifest airsoft BBs at the ceiling and they dropped to the floor. He called us on the telephone once. That was cool. One time when I was about to lay down in bed, he appeared at the edge of the bed, hopping from the left to the right and back again like a bunny rabbit. And my deceased sister Denise was sitting on the left foot of the bed, just grinning at him. And I know she was thinking, "You're such a stupid fool." And I was just watching. I thought, "Oh my God, I know I've not fallen asleep. I barely put my head on the pillow." But,
Wow.
and then I kept watching. And then all of a sudden, Erik turned to me and he looked alarmed, like, "Oh my God, Mom, you can see me." And he flew into my arms. We hugged. And I'm telling you, it felt like him, totally solid. And then, it didn't last long enough, unfortunately. But he would make unplugged appliances turn on. Like, I'll just give you one more because I know I'm talking too much.
No, I love it.
Every time that my husband would come in from the garage after work to the kitchen, the Viking downdraft vent that sucks up all the smoke from my burned cooking would go up and down once, like 3 days in a row. And, you might say, "Oh, it's a glitch." But the deal is that the whole kitchen was gutted because we were remodeling. So there was no power to the downdraft vent. It was like him saying, "Hey, Papa." So that was kind of cool. But still, I couldn't. It took me 4.5 years. It took one event for me to completely 100% believe. Yeah, it took a while. Slow learner.
Well, you're not a slow learner. You just, you're curious and you question things, so that's okay. Sorry, I just had to laugh about that. This is so irrelevant, but the TMI, too much information. Your husband's hilarious, saying just give him your credit card.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to touch on a few things, but the grief. So for those people that are listening that have lost a loved one and are terribly grieving, is there a time frame for grief?
Oh, no. Everyone has the grief in their own way and their own time frame, and you cannot let people say, "Get over it," or, "Hey, what about your other kids? You have other kids." You can't do that. I have found that the best way to get through grief is to lean into it, to get to the other side. Just embrace it. Just feel everything. Plus, you also have to know, and I found this out from research, that they're not gone. I mean, they've lost their body. That was the car they drove around in this world, but they are absolutely the same as they were, except no mental illness or physical illness, etc. They're free, and they're in this parallel dimension that's like 4 inches above ours. And you don't have to let them rest in peace. You can continue to have, a relation, and you should have a relationship with them, and they want you to. And there are so many ways to do that I speak about in my blog and my YouTube channel. You can continue to have a relationship with your loved one, and you don't have to always go to a medium. I mean, you can start out that way, but otherwise you don't have to.
Yeah, look, I absolutely 100% agree with you, but a lot of people aren't open to that. It's still the same person, still the same soul, but a much gentler connection. And I think some people find it hard to get to that place of quietness and trust and belief. And, I think, as you said, it took you 4 years to actually trust and believe. A lot of people don't necessarily trust their thoughts. It might be weird or peculiar, and they just dismiss it. So it is hard for a lot of people to get to that space, that level, that dimension, whatever you want to call it.
You're so right. And I think that part from on my part, I didn't really want to believe totally. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I didn't, because what if I did like 100% hook, line, and sinker believe, and then all of a sudden I found out it was a bunch of nonsense? That would be like losing them all over again, going through that whole thing, but only permanently. So I dug in my heels for so long. But I think that the problem is that, first of all, religion it makes the whole thing taboo. I mean, in the Council of Nicaea, they took out reincarnation and mediumship, because they didn't want people to know about that. But I think the main thing is we can't see spirits. I mean, usually we can't see them. So then we think, well, they don't exist. Well, look, they vibrate at a much higher frequency on the electromagnetic spectrum than we do. Like, here's the electromagnetic spectrum, okay? Cosmic rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, all that. We are in a tiny little sliver called the visible range, and that's where our 3D world is. And the spirits, they and other things vibrate outside of that range, higher than that range. So think about radio waves. I mean, we can't see them, but we know they exist. Think about a hummingbird. When it's sitting on a branch, which I've never seen, you can see their wings. But when they're in flight, the frequency of their beating is so fast that you really can't see them. So here's our lovely spirit, loved one, way outside the visible range. And here we are at the very low part of the visible range because we're depressed, we're sad, we're grieving. And so that's why we use words. So our vibrational frequency that's it's low. And that's why we say, I feel so low. I feel so depressed. So it makes it very difficult for them to, lower their energy, their frequency to meet or closely match ours. So we have to raise our vibration to, meet halfway.
Well, you certainly have done your research. That's a beautiful way of explaining it. I really agree. And it's interesting because I had a man who his son had committed suicide, and he contacted me. He'd watched the show. But one of the things I said to him is, you just mentioned it's almost a catch-22 because you're in such grief and despair, and he was broken. And I said, talked about the vibrational level, and I said, you're never going to meet him, for example, for a Zoom link, because you're on the wrong frequency. Yeah. So it's very, very hard when you're in such grief and despair for them to lower their vibration and you to raise yours.
Yes, it's very difficult, but you can think about happy thoughts with them, watch your favorite stand up. You can, put on some music, and there are all sorts of ways you can try. And also you could just try to talk to them. I mean, what you might hear maybe in your own voice, but it still could be, it's probably them. Okay. But we don't trust it without, well, that's just me. It's me talking to myself. But when I receive, when Eric talks to me, I feel it, I hear it on this side, and it just seems random. It doesn't seem like a thought that I would produce on my own. So it just takes practice, and you can just start by asking little questions like, are you here? Or do you know I love you? And just get yes and no questions. I would set out a cup of coffee for Eric and me at a table, and just have a time where we sat and talked. I mean, when he was in spirit. So there's so many things. And then there's something called the hand game that's kind of fun. So you first of all have to surround yourself, protect yourself with a prayer of intent, like surround me with a golden bubble of light, and the only ones I want here, give me the answers that honor my greatest good, and only Eric.
Vibrations of the highest order.
Yeah, you have to protect yourself. And then you say, let's see, you could ask them, show me your left, your yes and no, but you could also say, all right, my left is going to be the no, my yes is going to be the right. So whatever you can do.
Mhm.
So you can ask questions, and then you wait and feel any kind of change in sensation on one of the hands. It could be a sensation of blowing on your palm or something. It could be a tiny subtle change in temperature. It could be a vibration, all sorts of stuff. You know, feel anything after a while, just say, make it stronger, make it stronger, make it stronger. And you know, with practice, it's a kind of a good thing to do. You can also use the pendulums. That's kind of cool. Show me your yes, and it'll almost always be clockwise. I don't know why. Show me your no. It'll be usually counterclockwise. And you can ask yes and no questions that way. If you go to my YouTube, the Channeling Erick YouTube channel, and look up paranormal tools of the trade, it tells how to do these things, and also to use dowsing rods. You can communicate with your loved one that way. Show me your yes, and with Erick, he crosses them. Show me your no, and it'll go to the side. Both go to the side, and so I can ask him those questions. But what's really cool is if you ask, "Give me a hug," then those things swing around and hug your neck.
Oh,
And
I
also,
mean, that's beautiful.
it's beautiful. And then you can say, "Okay, we're going to play hide and go seek," and you take the rods and you're looking for them and stuff, and you know, the rods will move in the direction that person's in, and then all of a sudden you get close and they widen. That's Erick or whoever. So I remember Jamie had a Channeling Erick event in her place in Georgia, Atlanta, and she had us practice finding Erick. And all of a sudden I realized that everybody's turning around in circles with their dowsing rods because Erick was messing with them. It's funny.
That's funny. And, they're beautiful tools for people to connect. And always, for anyone that's listening, all your details will be in the show notes. But it's also about, all these tools that you've just spoken about. It's about getting quiet and consciously making the time to connect with the energy of the loved one. So it's setting aside the time. It's not sending an email or looking at Facebook or, it's to really consciously honoring that time and space.
Yeah. And that is something that is not one of my gifts. That is probably, well, I've got many flaws and perks, but boy, it's always been so hard for me to still my mind. There's all sorts of monkeys crawling around in there, but it seems like I do connect with Erick best when I'm, sitting in the bathtub. So still,
I guess you can't really do anything else, can you?
But I still chastise myself a lot because sometimes I forget. God, I got to talk to Erick, because I'm doing so much with Channeling Erick, doing stuff for other people. So, but I'm sure he understands. Hopefully.
There's a lot of people out there that are really hurting, aren't they, when they lose loved ones?
I know. And I wish I could hug them all, be a mama for them all, because I do know, nobody knows their exact situation, but my heart bleeds for them. So anyway, it took the reason I finally got to believe. You want to know that story? Or?
Sure, I'd love to, because I think people that are listening are in the same boat. How do I know? How do I believe this? As you mentioned, you can't see it, so it's trusting the unseen world. So I'd love you to. Please go on.
Thank you. So something amazing would happen. Like when Erick called on the phone. At first I didn't answer because it was during campaign elections, something or other. And so I thought, robocall. And then, hurry up, answering machine, pick it up. I'm busy. And so it finally picked up and it said, "Hi, Mama, it's me, Erick, it's me." It's like,
oh my God.
I pick the phone. I pick it up and of course it's too late. But the curious thing is that, that answering machine picked up everything. I mean, everything, but message count 0. And the number that was calling was like a 12-digit number. I called it and it was not a working number. So there was something there, but still doubt would creep in over time, because of my reluctance to believe. And, but then somebody from the blog, and I'll tell you, he's pranked so many blog members. Somebody from the blog, emailed me and said, "Elisa, on one of your YouTubes, like a year and a half ago, I heard voices." And she says it was the interview with Jesus. That was kind of fun. And that's not, well, I didn't say to her, that's not possible. It's just Jamie and me. That's it. So I listened to the timestamp she gave me, and yep, there were 3 voices. One was Jesus's. One was, God, what's the guy's name? He wrote This Naked Civil Servant, a dude, a big hat. Oh, well, anyway, I can't remember.
Anyway.
I'm old. And then there's Erik.
You're not old.
Because I am 65. And so anyway, there's Erik saying, can we get him to come to breakfast? And that's how he said breakfast, like a little kid. And I heard him clearing his throat. He had his tick of clearing his throat. Plus I heard him pacing over and over again, which he used to do all the time. And it was his voice, man. I know my son's voice. And then the gay guy said, he was asking Jesus to go to breakfast, okay? The guy goes, they have breakfast there. They can do anything there. And so the gay dude said, I'm down with sausages. That was fun. Get it, Louisa?
No.
No? Okay, Erik.
Enlighten me, please.
Can Jesus come to breakfast with us? And the gay guy said, yes, I'm down with sausages. You're too innocent. All right, never mind.
Okay, I'm going to think about that one.
Okay. So I won't go into further detail because that's mine.
Okay, I'm thinking about that one now.
But don't think about it. No, don't. Please don't. This is my Christina says, Mom, this is a line. This is you.
No. You can talk about anything here on Passion Harvest. That's fine.
I always tell her, I'm a doctor.
Exactly.
So I, of course, had it analyzed by actually 2 sound professionals, and they did a really, and that analysis is actually on the YouTube channel. I think it's Voices of the Dead or Voices from the Dead, where you can actually hear Jesus. It's really amazing.
Wow.
And those are not human voices. For many reasons, one of which is they did not leave a voice print or voice signature. I know nothing about that kind of thing. So that's when, okay, I really believe. And Erik has left, and he may this time too, so many EVPs, and for those of you out there that don't know, electronic voice phenomena, where he will even afterwards, well, let me give you an example. I was on a radio show as a guest, and a couple of days after, the host, wonderful lady, said, Elisa, there is somebody that said something that was not heard live. And so I said, okay, so I listened, and it's Erik saying minions. I mean, that loud. Okay. And then Jamie, the channel, starts giggling and saying he's calling them minions. And then, he just said recently he's on one, he says, hi, Mom, like that. I mean, it's not the EVPs that are, not like that. He makes them extremely clear. But anyway, so I'll try to find my favorite. It's when he says, love you, Mom. But
you explained the frequencies before. How would a spirit do that?
Well,
I'm sure you've studied it and looked at the scientifics of it and how it's possible. How has that been explained to you?
They can manipulate energy, and everything's energy, including these recordings, etc. So they can go after the fact. In fact, he's had EVPs that say one thing, and people, oh, he said this, and then you listen later, and he changes it to something different. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. Probably not, but
let's try.
But this is where Eric, I love you. You hear "Love You, Mom"?
Yes, I do.
Let's do one more time. Oops. Oh, I had to put it to the beginning, I guess. Oops. Okay. Eric, I love you. I mean, it's
100%. It's so clear,
and it's so wonderful to listen to. When I'm missing him, I like to listen to that. But, and
so,
for those of you who lost people, you can actually put on like a voice recorder that's voice activated, and it can take a long time. Put it in a nice quiet place, and a lot of times you can capture their voice. So that's another thing that if you read through the blog archives and also watch the YouTubes, you'll see all sorts of things.
So what is, I mean, I guess when people die, the ones that they leave behind, they learn incredible lessons. What's one of the biggest lessons Erik's death has taught you?
Well, first of all, that there is no such thing as, we're eternal souls. I mean, there's transition, but there's no end to life. And I think some of the lessons that I feel like were most valuable to me are, of course, the importance of vulnerability. I mean, open your heart. Vulnerability is often in this society seen as weakness, but it's not. It's strength. And lead with your heart, not your head. He also says that, it's important to be emotionally honest with yourself and with others. Let me see. Another one is, he says we're emotional beings and we need to feel first, think second. So usually, and I'm guilty, we think a thought and that evokes an emotion, and that emotion drives us to some sort of choice or action. Whereas we really should be, as emotional beings, feeling first, and let that feeling, get in touch with that feeling, and let that feeling produce a thought, and let that thought create a choice or
Well,
spiritual.
that's a beautiful explanation. Since this is the show about passion, because I always say, you have to follow what feels really right for you and really good, because it's either generally your soul connecting with your high consciousness, or spirit
Yeah,
guides giving you those little nudges on the way.
that's right. But so many of us, and of course, I'm still guilty of that, but
Me
definitely
too
was
sometimes.
so hard to trust your. I mean, it seems like the brain, what goes on in our mind is louder, okay, the instructions, the whatever, than our heart. Our heart is a more subtle energy, our intuition. So it takes practice to it really takes practice to tap into it, and it can save your life. It's really important to learn how to tap into your intuition, because it can really save your life. Like one time I was a third-year resident in internal medicine in Galveston, and I just got off a 3 days call. So I went to a beach with a book. Nobody was there. And all of a sudden I felt this weird sensation. It was like, oh my God, I'm in danger. Looked around, nobody. And so then a few moments later, I saw this guy coming down the steps of the seawall and coming toward me, kind of far off.
Mm.
And I said, oh my God, he wants to kill me. And so he does come up to me, and he starts talking to me, and he starts massaging my thighs and commenting on my cellulite, which I think is horrible even for a serial killer. But anyway, so then he was about to strangle me. And for some reason, I don't know if the divine was calming me down or whatever, but I felt really calm. It was the strangest thing. And then he asked, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a physician and a black belt karate instructor. Which
Love it.
I am not. I am not a black belt. So he got nervous and went away. So 2 years later, I saw him on TV. He's the Killing Fields serial killer that dumped a bunch of bodies in Texas City, and now he's in prison in Galveston. So
Wow.
I felt something was wrong, and I was preparing myself to do something proactive. So.
And it sounds like obviously you had a little bit of fear, but you had that sort of calmness that had overcome everything.
Yeah, I don't
You'd
know.
separated from the ego or the mind or whatever you wanted to call it, and went into the heart space.
Yeah, I think it was probably not from me. I think I had divine intervention that's helping calm me down.
Mm.
I I don't know. I don't know. Maybe my higher self. Who knows?
So
But
for those people that haven't looked at the blog, and I'm sure they're going to, what does Erik say about the afterlife?
well, he
What
says.
happens when we die? Sorry, I've got too many questions. My head's just got all these
Oh,
questions now.
girl, Louisa, we might have to have two parts. But oh gosh, y'all should read his book. It's so much better than the one I wrote. Sorry, but I wrote one called My Son and the Afterlife: Conversations with the Other Side. He wrote My Life After Death, a memoir from heaven, where he
Mm.
describes everything in such detail, from moments before his death all the way up to the current time, including a very detailed description of the afterlife, like how the bark of the trees are different, how the sky is different. Um, I don't remember most of it, but it's so detailed, and his meeting with God and stuff. But you basically can create anything you want. And at first, he created a home for himself because he was still connected to his humanness. So, he made a home and, had a TV and stuff. But eventually he let go of the human things. But here, there's a law of attraction. Thought creates reality because light, everything's energy. Waves through the Schrodinger wave equation collapse to a particle. So wave thoughts, which are scalar energy, you send it out there and it collapses into particles, which create reality. Well, that's a much slower process on this side of the veil. Over there, it's instant, man. You think of a pizza and you taste pizza in your mouth. You think that you're, surfing on the surface of the sun. You're there. You think you're, well, I was going to say,
you're not going to talk about the sausage again, are you?
No, I was going to say, you think you're at the planet Uranus, but I was always taught to say Uranus, but okay, so I decided to back up on that one. Anyway, never mind. Oh my God, I'm interrupting your mind, girl.
No, I love you. So he talks about meeting God. Does he talk about a heaven and a hell that we talk about on this?
Yes.
No?
Yes. There is no hell.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if your belief system, if you believe before you died, if you believe there was a hell, then your mind is going to conjure up a hell of sorts, but you don't feel fire and brimstone. But eventually you ask for help and you get out of that illusion. And if you're an atheist, like my father was, you'll be in darkness, and then all of a sudden you realize you're thinking like, oh my God, did I turn the iron off, or how's my dog? And then it's like, oh my God, why am I thinking? And then you ask for help, and then they help. So then they get you out of that. But there's only that one dimension of the afterlife, and everyone goes there. Even Hitler, all the dinosaurs, everything. There's no purgatory. There's nothing like that.
I was about to ask you that. So the concept of judgment. So if we've done wrong on this earthly humanness plane, is there a concept of judgment there?
No. You only judge yourself. And the deal is there is no right or wrong, really. There's only experiences, because even the bad, that's good, right? Mm-hmm. Even the bad, there's so much value. In fact, there's probably more value in the bad than there is in the good. So, and even Jesus said this in the Bible, which I've read very little, said that you have to teach your children right from wrong so they'll understand there is no difference. So we come here to experience, and we have that duality so that we can learn bad, good. Okay, so for example, source, which is God, is everything.
Many names, yeah.
Yeah, it's everything is energy, and we are whole and part of God. Everything is light, and that energy is actually love. Okay. It's very special energy, but it's everything. Even Einstein said that matter was frozen light. Everything's energy. And so source, this sentient, self-aware energy, understood love, for example, conceptually, but it needed to experience it to really fully understand. I mean, here's Erik's metaphor analogy. Okay, so you could understand the concept of a brownie by looking at a picture, reading the recipe, etc., right? Mm-hmm. But you really have to go into the kitchen, mix up all the ingredients, get batter all over your hair, stick it in the oven, burn your fingers, take it out, cool it off, ice it, and take a bite. And that's when you truly know what a brownie is. It's like you have to take the chemistry lab with the chemistry. So, in order to truly understand, for example, all the different facets of love, like forgiveness, okay, then you're going to have to incarnate and have an agreement with some other spirit or soul to betray you, so that you truly understand on a deeper level what forgiveness is all about. And then there's so many. I really recommend a book by Neil Donald Walsh.
Yes, Neil Donald Walsh.
And you can find it on Google. It's called The Little Soul and the Sun. It's a children's story, but it explains all that so succinctly, and even I could understand it. But then you understand why we're here. Eric says we are here to remember how to love, but we're also here to remember that we are love, and love is truly. You hear the churches say it. But love is truly all there is. So you say, well, wait, what about evil? Well, okay, love is light, right? So there's a spectrum. And on the lower spectrum, it's very dark, but there's still light, you know? It's very interesting.
It's very interesting. It's such a hard concept to grasp, because I do get a lot of questions from people saying, well, if it's so good up there, why do we have to come back? But you did explain it, but it is a hard concept to grasp. But I guess there's lessons that we need to learn too.
Yeah, and he explains that whole concept, I think, in both of the books. But it's kind of important to know why we're here. Otherwise, we feel like our lives are meaningless. But when you do die and go to heaven, the afterlife, whatever you want to call it, they really do miss it here. It's like, I'm like, oh God, when this is over with, geez, I'm just going to go there to the afterlife. I'm going to I'm going to sit my ass in a lazy boy and stay there. I hope it has cup holders, wine holders. I'm just going to, no. But they say that, no, you want to get right back in the saddle, that you really see it. It's like, there's a chessboard, right? And we're the pawns, and we're being pushed around everywhere. But when they see it, they look at it from the perspective of a chess player, and they see the value of all the moves, and we can actually do that now. If we are just mired in the human experience and so depressed from it all, then you can actually tweak. It's all about perspective. Tweak your perspective and try to look at the value. For example, here's how to let go, I think, of suffering anyway. But in my case, our childhood was so horrible. But what I did was I figured out what I got out of it that was valuable, and there's value in everything, I'm telling you. And what I got out of it is I became more compassionate, nurturing. I'm probably a better mother because of it, and I learned how to be more assertive. So once I was able to find the value, I could embrace it, be grateful for it, and then surrender it, let it go. No longer a victim of child abuse, and it's actually easier than one thinks. So
that's a beautiful way to explain it, because people think, well, why would I want to come back to conflict and suffering? But and you really let it go, because if you hold on to those memories with negativity and pain and don't look for the value in it, you might have to come back for another life to experience it and try and learn the lesson.
Yeah. And also I want to talk about, Eric, it's very rare for people to have suicide as in their contract. Usually you say, F you, or, I don't know any way out. There's also reasons, but usually when somebody takes their lives, they regret it so much because, well, first of all, they feel every heartbreak. They hear every grieving thought. They see the people they've left behind suffering so much. And a lot of them say, well, when I die, nobody's going to care about me. No, they realize that there are so many people that
the loved ones.
Yeah, but also you see all the life paths of people that you've disrupted. Like maybe you were supposed to be a mother to a child that would grow up to find a cure for cancer, things like that. So you really realize that you've squandered a beautiful chance at the human experience. It is really a treasure. As hard as it is, we get through it. We evolve and we leave the world a better place if we just can, there's a blog post called A Break from Being Human that I think it might be helpful for those who are struggling with the human experience. So So yeah, but you can go through the archives and hopefully get a lot of tips and lessons, and I've learned. I mean, I'm just one of them people
We're
in the
all learning, right? And I also think, touching on that we actually, I mean, I'm of the belief we live in a hologram. So if you can look at it more like a movie, and we're creating our own movie instead of getting too engrossed in the what isness or the nowness of it, you can
Exactly.
actually shift or raise your vibration and change timelines. And again, going back to your law of attraction, you know, the more grateful you are, the more happy you are, more happiness and gratitude will come into your life.
That's true. You have to have that river, the flow of give, receive, give. You can't always, and has always been my problem. I want to help people all the time because that's how I heal. You know, I heal best when I help others. But you can't just give, give, give. You have to be okay with receiving too, so that there's this circular, beautiful flow, you know?
Mm. So I guess the question for you now is, are you afraid of death?
No, not at all. I don't want to see the people I leave behind suffer, but now I think most of my family, they understand, you know, unless I'm going to haunt their ass when I'm up there. I'll make sure they know I'm still around. No problem.
I'm sure you will.
By the way, if you read Erik's book, almost always he will prank you, but it's not like it's fun pranks. It's like he's just really a prankster. Even when he was alive, he was such a jokester. It was so fun with him. And now he's not going to like you wake up from a dead sleep and there he is with his face. Woo! No, it's not going to do that. They're fun, non-scary pranks, and all the blog members, they just want a prank from Erik, and why haven't I gotten one? I remember the first one was this guy. His name was Damon. He is an Irishman. He's in Ireland, and Erik just appeared before him, like, and he recognized him. I guess because he was reading the blog. I don't remember. But Erik said, "Hey, dude, I bet I could tell you how far away your girlfriend is from you." And like, Dave was like, "Oh my God, what?" I'm thinking, goes, "What's going on?" And his girlfriend happened to be in Canada at the time. So Damon says, "Okay." And so he calculates how many kilometers and told him. And of course, later Damon looked it up, you know, figured it out, and it was right on.
Wow.
So apparently Erik got in trouble for that. You're not supposed to mess around like that. So that's funny.
And so you mentioned Erik is a spirit guide. Is he one of your spirit guides, or can a spirit guide have multiple human people to guide?
It's so weird that I've never asked if he's my spirit guide.
Oh,
I know he's a spirit guide to a lot of the blog members, and if you want him to be a spirit guide, you know, he could be your spirit guide, but we all have spirit guides generally that change, you know, as our needs are. Like, say you're writing a book, then you can have spirit guides that specialize in that, and then when you're finished, they'll go and some. So, but I asked Erik, how can you help so many people? And he talks about this in his book, how he learned to do this, but they can split themselves into infinite Eriks, for example,
probabilities and
perfectly
possibilities.
whole consciousness. This Erik consciousness, that Erik consciousness, that etc. that can transcend, you know, time and space. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Like people say, "Oh my God, no!" Sorry. People say, "Well, they fuss at me because of the Jesus interview. Why would Jesus talk to you? He only talks to the Pope and people like that." Well, no, obviously I don't know Jesus, but like any spirit, he can split himself off infinitely and connect. So, yeah.
And the way I understand it, or the way I imagine that, and I've done that before, but it's almost if like you're you and you remember going to the home of someone, so you can imagine yourself walking through the home, so you're in two places at once. Obviously, that's not infinite probabilities, but that's just a way of trying to conceptualize in our humanness how it could possibly be.
Oh my gosh, that's an awesome analogy.
Oh, thank you.
Just projecting your consciousness.
Yes, that's what it is, but multiple ones. You can practice at it like anything.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. I'm putting it on my list.
Great. So, in the essence of time, is there something you'd really like to talk to the audience about?
Well, I mean, just if you need if you need somebody, you can always connect with me. I'm a big mama. Bring over your adoption papers. Ask Eric for help. Do read through the archives of the blog and also, the YouTube. I know you can pick and choose, of course, things that will help you the most, but just know that we are right where we're supposed to be. Everything is going to be okay. It is going to be fine.
And I've got two more things to say after that. I just want to thank you because it's for anyone that's listening or watching the show, it's such a beautiful resource that you've created for all those people in need. It really, really helps a lot of people. So I want to say thank you for that. And I just got a question to ask you. Did Eric ever say that he might reincarnate into the physical again?
Yeah, no, he says no. He's going to wait till all of us come over there. I don't know. You have free will here and you have free will there, so he can always change his mind. So
if you pass, you can meet with him again. Is that how he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Nice.
And that's really beautiful. So I guess since it is a show about passion, I have to ask you, for people who are looking to follow their passion or to find joy in their life, what's your advice?
Listen to your heart. Your heart will never steer you wrong. And believe in yourself. Practice the law of manifestation. Law of attraction, that you can manifest anything. Say your joy is to write a children's book. Use all your senses as if it's already happened. The book is successful. It's there. You can smell the pages. You can, see the award ceremonies, etc. So if you employ all your senses, then, and they say there's a 17-second manifestation tool that if you think like that for 17 seconds a day, then that increases your chance of manifestation. So everything's possible.
Beautiful tip. Dr. Elisa Medhus, thank you so much for being on Passion Harvest. I've loved chatting with you. I'm not going to think about the sausage again, but it's really been a like-minded, beautiful conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for being the light worker that you are. You're just a beautiful soul, and I hope we connect again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Like this episode, please do subscribe for weekly passionate, inspirational interviews.